Hello everyone, Ryan here. Army of One. Army of One stars Nicolas Cage, Wendy McLendon-Covey, and Russell Brand. It was also directed by Larry Charles, the same guy that directed the movie Borat. So you can guess that this movie also has kind of a similar feel and look to it. And I gotta say, this was pretty hilarious. I mean, to see Nicolas Cage in this kind of role, but at the same time, he actually did a pretty good job. It's supposed to be based on a true story of this guy named Gary Faulkner. He was an ex-con, and he was an unemployed handyman, kind of like a modern-day Don Quixote, who claimed that he received visions from God. At the same time, he had, I guess, this like bad kidney or something. So he would get dialysis treatment at least twice a week, and it was always during these treatments that he would have these visions, and he would claim that he would see God, and God would talk to him. I guess the first time he saw God, that's when he claimed that God told him to go and capture Osama bin Laden, and in order to make sure that he's held accountable for the events of 9/11. And so then he actually ends up traveling to Pakistan, and in order to complete his mission. And he pretty much, the only thing he takes with him is some like samurai sword that he purchased from the Home Shopping Network. And of course, obviously he's not successful. I mean, obviously, I guess I don't consider that to be a big spoiler. But ultimately, I will say, I will admit, most of the story is ridiculous. But, I mean, it's supposed to be based on, at least in some part, based on what this actual guy went through. He seemed to be so intent on trying to capture Osama bin Laden, because he was convinced that God told him to do it. And which in this movie, Russell Brand plays God, which is another thing that I found hilarious, because if you're not familiar with Russell Brand, he's a comedian, also actor, and but also a pretty intelligent guy. I mean, I think so. I think he also has a YouTube channel on which he actually talks about real issues. It's not just superficial stuff, and it's not the same stuff that every other news network talks about. And he also makes you think. He'll bring up a lot of different topics, and sometimes he'll be able to talk about how they're all connected. Sometimes he'll be able to talk about how different people feel they might be connected, and to me, I find him to be a very interesting person. In addition to being funny and witty, but in this movie, he is supposed to be God, or at least some kind of projected image of God, I guess, technically. And so, I mean, it was interesting to see Nicolas Cage interact with him, and of course, as this Gary Faulkner guy. And also, too, one thing that took me a while to get used to was in this Nicolas Cage, he does this weird kind of voice. I guess it was his way of trying to replicate Gary Faulkner's actual voice. But then at the end of the movie, they showed actual news clips of Gary Faulkner, the actual Gary Faulkner, And I don't know, to me, I didn't, his voice didn't sound that weird to me at all. I don't know why Nicolas Cage, he chose to like do his voice like high pitched and like whiny, and I don't know if that was Nicolas Cage's way of poking fun at the actual Gary Faulkner. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the reason. Either that, or unless the director or somebody told Nicolas Cage, they could have told him to do that in order to like exaggerate the overall personality of Gary Faulkner or something. I don't know. It could be a possibility, I think. But, you know, it's ultimately, I feel like the story, you know, because it's just a lot of exaggerations. For me, it felt like a lot of exaggerations. But then there was also like certain scenes where I felt like, yeah, okay, that could have definitely happened. Like there was one part where, because originally Gary Faulkner, he bought this like hang glider. Originally he purchased a boat, and he believed that he could travel by sea into Pakistan, and then from there, you know, kind of sneak in to Afghanistan and search the caves for Osama bin Laden. And of course he wasn't able to, because, you know, apparently there's no way to do that. I don't know how it works there. I guess there's really no, large enough body of water close enough to Pakistan or something like that. Because that's what they talk about towards the end of the movie. So then after that, he tries to hang glide. I want to say it's from somewhere in Pakistan into Afghanistan. But that doesn't work out for him because, you know, he doesn't bother taking any kind of hang gliding classes, nor does he even like try to practice or anything. So he ends up pretty much crashing, and on his first try. So, but then apparently he ends up, I guess, he ended up going to Pakistan a total of like 9 times or something, and until I guess the last time he was found wandering around in the forest somewhere, and then eventually some, I guess, Pakistani police found him, and they brought him back to, I guess, U.S. Embassy, I believe. And yeah, and then from there, that's when he started getting interviewed by all these reporters, and I guess he eventually sold the rights to his story. And it's a pretty interesting thing, I think. You know, while I will say, like, you know, I admire the fact that he had the guts to do something like that. At the same time, it's obviously, you know, it can't help but not think that, you know, what he did was stupid. Although in the beginning of the movie, somewhere, kind of, there's a scene in the beginning when Gary Faulkner, he says something like, because supposedly he's one of those guys that is always talking, like, as soon as you ask him one question, he'll just keep on talking and talking and talking. That's something that even Nicolas Cage said, you know, at the end of the movie, when Nicolas Cage first met Gary Faulkner. Nicolas Cage even said that, yeah, he was surprised that Gary Faulkner just, you know, talked so much, like, and Nicolas Cage only asked him like one question, and he ended up talking for like over half an hour. But so anyways, there's one scene in the movie where Gary Faulkner is talking out loud when he's getting dialysis, and then of course nobody's paying attention to him. They're just like, trying to ignore him, but he's still talking anyway. He says something to the effect of something about that America is the greatest country ever, and this and that, and also that the reason why America's so great is because it's full of people that aren't afraid to just do something, that aren't afraid to just act instead of just think. And he went on to say something like that history is that all the people who have accomplished great things, they weren't the people that just thought about something before doing it. They were just it was the people that did something before thinking about it. And something to that effect. And while obviously, I mean, I understand what he was getting at, but I don't know, for me, I just came ultimately his personality for me, it came off as more of like, just like, I don't know, kind of like ultimately just very arrogant, really. I guess you could say, naive, ignorant to a certain extent. Although, I mean, I'm not saying that Gary Faulkner, like, to me, he didn't really come off as ignorant, but I will say his actions came off as ignorant and naive. But, I don't know. To me, this is like the first time I've seen a movie that depicts a person. If it was a fictional character, I really wouldn't care that much. But it's supposed to be an actual guy. So, now he's like one of those rare few people, at least for me, which I can't decide if I like him or if I hate him. It's kind of like, it's like both. Like, I both like and hate him. And yeah, I can't decide just either or. I don't know. It's a pretty cool movie. Like I said, it's ridiculous. So if you don't like ridiculous kinds of movies, you probably won't like this. But still, I kind of think that everyone should watch this at least once. I mean, even if only just to get a sense of what this Gary Faulkner guy is about, So, yeah. As far as rating goes, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10. Yeah. 9 out of 10. Mostly because of the fact that, well, Nicolas Cage, he gives a pretty good performance. Russell Brand gives a good performance. The entire cast is great. But also, too, the fact that this Gary Faulkner guy, is a living contradiction. I mean, kind of, not really, but, the fact that I can't make up my mind about him, that's, I don't know. I kind of feel like that's something to tolerate. I don't know. I don't want to ramble on, but yeah, you got to see this movie so that you can have an idea of what he's about, and what I'm trying to explain. So yeah, that'll do for my review of this. Once again, I give it a 9 out of 10. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, next time, don't forget, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.